Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the F124 Driver Career Mode. We are here heading into round 11, another sprint event headed to the Austrian Grand Prix, fresh off the heels of a very late retirement, our second retirement of mechanical issues of the season at Spain. But we do have good opportunities around a track that I have a lot of experience around in FRS, so typically have some good efforts and abilities here, and hopefully that translates into F124. It's the first time I'm driving it in 24, but does look to be nice and sunny for sprint qualifying, and the sprint race, but does look like, according to at least the primary weather chart there, a little bit of rain targeted for the main Grand Prix. One of the quickest lap times of the season, the Austrian Grand Prix. Just looking to be around a minute 5, minute 6, minute 7, 8, 9, depending on if you're in qualifying or race trim. So those laps will tick down quickly, and a lot of DRS coverage on this one. You get down into turn 1, turn 3, and turn 4 DRS opportunities to make some overtakes. So it's all about trying to stick with the car ahead as usual, but plenty of opportunities where we're going to have to defend down into these long straights. Let's take a look at our messages and see what else we have in store for us. All right, taking a look, we'll see if we can get a more detailed weather forecast. A couple of upgrades on the way in and a failure, and it does look like we're going to be starting the Grand Prix with a little bit of rain, but we have had some developments moving in the right directions, which is fantastic. Still have a few goals to finish for our experts. Finishing in a better position than a teammate is always the goal, but we have hit just about the level we need for our season improvements. We are just starting to work our way forward in the groups, starting to get kind of clear of the bottom 3 teams, nearly catching up to that Cash App RB team. So making our engine component changes to make sure we've got nice fresh engine. It is a pretty power unit sensitive track around Spielberg, so needing that horsepower is going to be pretty key. But let's go ahead and jump into the sprint qualifying.
Hello everyone, welcome to Austria. It is a short track, it is high speed, it is exactly what we enjoy for qualifying.
So coming out of the final corner, winding up for our first run of sprint qualifying across the line with the DRS open, the overtake button on, find about the 100-meter board, get turned into turn 1, run right out to that curb. Lots of traffic on the way out. Of course, a very short lap, so we're going to see a lot of cars now headed up the left-hand kink that is turn 2. Not much of a turn in an F1 car. Then hard on the brakes for turn 3. The sharp hairpin, big step out of the backside as you're cresting up that hill and trying to get on the power, maintain the back end. So quite a bit of time lost in that corner. Now down the hill into turn 4. Another tricky little braking zone. Get the car rotated back on power and try and use the battery exactly where we need to. Quick, high speed flick left. And then there is another one as we start to head into the final couple of corners of the lap. Try and stay within track limits, just barely on that right-hander. It comes up quick as the track switches back to the right. Now last 2 corners, turn 9 and 10. Little hump before the 50-meter board is kind of your almost turn-in point there. And then just try and get good feeling and rotation. Could have taken a little more speed to get out to the outside in the final corner, but we are going to cross the line, go P6 overall. Of course, sprint qualifying, we are on the medium tires. We did have the ability to go for 2 runs on the medium tires, so we're going for another since it's such a short circuit before we put on the softs and go for our final run. Just trying to get one that's a little more representative, considering we had that big wheel spin moment out of turn 3. As you can see, there's only about 6 minutes left to go in the session, but should be plenty. But then a huge lockup into turn 3 this time. But even still, by not having that huge oversteer wheel spin moment, we still even gain 2.5 tenths roughly, or 2.25 tenths into turn 3. At a decent run through turn 4, we're going to find about 1/4 second through the first 2 sectors, as the medium tires are going to retain actually about 3 tenths as we hit the second sector split. So not a great first sector for us, but we do make up the time in the second sector. So we are going to put a bit of a time improvement on. And considering we are kind of fighting with the other cars around us and we're doing these laps on the mediums, might bode well for what we can do once we bolt the softs on as we cross the line. Improve P7 provisionally on the medium tires. So here we go. Couple seconds left, 30 seconds left to go in the session as we're crossing the line now on that set of soft compound tires, going for that one more final flying lap. You see gaining time on the run up to turn 1 just because we carry more speed out of the final corner. About 1/10 of a second found through the first corner. And now we will see if we can have a clean entry into turn 3 this time. It's been a tricky corner in qualifying. Good entry. Can we get the exit? A little bit of oversteer we have to correct for, but overall find about half a second. We're purple in the first sector. Best of anyone so far. And now headed down into turn 4, where again, that soft tire grip can come into play. We are close to about a half second overall improvement. Now really pitch the car in a little wide of the apex there, so we're losing some time through the first of the 2 left-handers. Can we make up for it in the second? Having to hesitate on throttle, so it actually kind of holds steady and not a great run on the soft tires through the 2 quick left-handers in the middle part of the lap. But just 2 corners left to go. Good amount of the curb there in turn 9, turn 10. We're going to find about 4/10 of a second this lap. What does that do for us in the final run? Front row start for the sprint race, a P2 start in this one. So all of those hours in FRS have definitely paid off in Austria. It's been a staple of the calendar for all the seasons I raced it, and definitely continues to carry on. Nico Hulkenberg down in P13, so looking to improve his way, about 0.8 of a second off of our lap time. Well, let's see how the sprint goes.
Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. "700 meters above sea level, 10 corners, and one of the shortest laps of the season. 2.6 miles with some good overtaking opportunities, but you've got to get the braking right into turn 1 and turn 3. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position. An old-timer completes the front row. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, Sainz, Perez, Leclerc, Norris, Stroll, Hamilton, Russell, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Ricciardo, Albon, Ocon, Joe, Bottas, Sargent, and Pierre Gasly picks up the final grid slot today. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint. Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me is Anthony Davidson. So a sprint race today, and that means lights to flag, no stops. And how is that going to affect the driver behind the wheel?
Absolutely. So for today, there's no pit stop, or shouldn't be a pit stop anyway, if things go right, and you can forget about strategy. You're just driving today as fast as you can, make those overtakes if you need to, and that's what a sprint weekend's all about.
Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
So it'll likely be a medium tire for the race here. Nothing but clear track in front of us aside from Verstappen on P1 as the 5 red lights come up and go out. As we get some wheel spin off the line, we are able to get ahead of Piastri. We're going to swing to the outside. Alonso gets a good start up the inside of us, but we should be able to carry the momentum around the outside. Now burn some battery, stay in the slipstream of Max Verstappen. We've held on to P2. Swinging to the inside, Fernando Alonso having a look to try and make a move into turn 3. We are going to maintain the outside line once again, carry some extra momentum. It is costing us a little bit of ground to Verstappen, but we do once again get the traction, get clear of Alonso as we now head into the middle part of the lap where that slipstream is going to be a little less helpful. Verstappen nearly creating that 1 second margin already, but we are looking to try and claw it back through the middle part of the lap here. Just need to stay within that 1 second. If we can start to latch onto him with that DRS help, could really work wonders for this 12-lap sprint race. No weather anticipated, no pit stops for the sprint race, so we should be just pure pace is the differential, and we should be able to maintain a decent chunk of tire wear. We are 0.8 of a second back of Verstappen as we are crossing the first detection point now that DRS is enabled in turn 1. A little bit too much curb on the apex of turn 1, but car just kind of slides out the outside curve, still neat and tidy as we head up the hill into turn 3. And it allows us a very good opportunity to get much closer to Verstappen and kind of start to feel out how the car is doing, if there is the opportunity to maybe make an attack on Max Verstappen later in the stint. But as it stands right now, it does give us a chance to use that DRS to help to defend from Fernando Alonso behind. That Aston Martin really showing up well at this stage of the season as he is starting to get himself back into the conversation for race wins. But as we flick our way through the end of the sector and head to the end of the lap especially, we are still nice within touching distance of Max Verstappen. We'll see as that rear wing is going to flip open down the pit straight for the first time. And it's going to be all about tire management, making sure we stay within the fuel margins that we need, as well as we run very wide deep into turn 1. So we have to take to the escape road a bit. We are able to rejoin safely. It's cost us a little bit of time, but we have that DRS to once again close up. We just went a little bit too deep into turn 1 and a little bit deep into turn 3. So mistakes starting to creep in a little bit as Fernando Alonso tucked right up against our gearbox. We're having a look. Is he going to go outside, inside? He's actually not going to pull out alongside. He's going to stay right behind. But we may have managed to just about hang on to the DRS of Verstappen in spite of our 2 errors. We just need to maintain these last few corners in order to keep that DRS and start to recover from those little mistakes. 750, just about 0.8 the gap as we head up the hill into the final 2 corners. And we are indeed going to stay with Verstappen. I believe we're carrying a little bit more downforce than the AI. We tend to be a little bit quicker in turns 9 and 10 in the middle sector. In fact, we set the fastest lap for a split second, a 105.880, as Perez ends up going about a 10th faster. We're going to jump ahead, though, as it was very much follow the leader. We're on lap 11, about to start the final lap of the sprint race. And you can see lap times now down 107.0, so we're not super fast anymore. And we still have Alonso Piastri right up our gearbox hanging with the back of us, and there's a pretty big gap after Leclerc to the next group. But our last big opportunity to overtake is going to be turn 4. Alonso makes a bit of a lunge into turn 3 as we go a little bit deep. It's not going to quite give the opportunity for him to overtake us if we can defend our way into turn 4. Verstappen, his tires held on just a little bit better than ours did, so in the middle part of the race, it was looking like we might be able to attack and go for the lead of this race. However, we ended up at the tire wear death, just having to kind of hold station. But it'll be big in order to start P2, finish P2 in a sprint race. You can see Verstappen with those tires. Now 1 second the gap. Of course, we don't really need that DRS from him anymore as his battery is derating. Coming through the final 2 corners, we take the final corner, open the DRS, and across the line and grab a sprint podium. So a nice haul of 7 points this time.
Top job, yes! I was a bit worried about this one at the start of the weekend, but man, you pulled through. Thank you, well done.
So with the sprint concluded, join us next time for qualifying and of course the main event, this weekend's Formula One Grand Prix. We will see you next time.
And it looks like Nico didn't have the opportunity to make too much extra ground there as he looks to have crossed the line P14, but Verstappen ahead. Alonso, Piastri, Leclerc, Stroll, Perez, and Russell rounding out the sprint point scores. Hamilton, Norris making up what would have been point scoring positions if it had been a full Grand Prix. And yeah, there it is. Nico Hülkenberg dropping the 1 spot in order to fall behind. We are up into P10 in the championship, moving ahead of Lance Stroll on our 28 points. But we still, of course, have a full Grand Prix left to go and Grand Prix qualifying up next.
Hello everyone, welcome to Austria. It is a short track, it is high speed, it is exactly what we enjoy for qualifying.
Okay, we seem to be having a few software issues at the moment. Sit tight for a few minutes while we reboot some things, okay?
Well, not an ideal start to qualifying to lose 2 minutes in technical issues, but we are out eventually on track on the soft tires. We have 2 sets of soft tires for Grand Prix qualifying, so we will follow our standard Grand Prix qualifying system of do 2 sets of runs on softs. I have fueled up for 2 flying laps, basically for this first run, a fast lap, a cool down lap to recharge the battery, and then 1 more fast lap. See if we can get, as the tire degradation is not super high around here, see if we can get a good second run on the lighter fuel. Bit of a lockup down into turn 4. It's an area where it can happen if you are a little early on the turn in. But we'll see what our initial benchmark is. Of course, on the heels of the sprint qualifying, coming P2, and the sprint race with a P2 finish, I was feeling pretty confident coming into Grand Prix qualifying, knowing there were some things I could clean up, and of course just the extra track time getting dialed into the circuit by the time we get to Grand Prix qualifying. And I'm thinking there's a possibility of even going a little bit better. And we do, in fact, on our very first run with some heavier fuel, go provisional P1. So jumping ahead, as we are finishing up our second flying lap. Skipped ahead, we kind of stayed right along with it, did not improve, ended up just going a couple hundred slower. Verstappen did end up going about a little bit quicker than us to take back that P1, but we didn't need to watch the entirety of that second lap because it was pretty much the same as the first, as you can see, within a tenth of a second. But here we are winding up for our final flying run of the Grand Prix qualifying. Need to find a bit of time to get ahead of Verstappen into turn 1. A good run through turn 1, finding about a tenth of a second at the apex and a little bit more time as we climb up the hill. Using our battery in a slightly different way, we lose a couple hundredths. Fastest overall by 2/10 in the first sector over Verstappen's provisional pole time at the moment. Holding steady through turn 3. Not a ton of time gained or lost there, so it's a good run through turn 3. Now down into turn 4, where we had a tiny bit of a lockup the first time. We find some time on the way in, not quite so much time on the way out. And now we are just looking to try and finish. Norris goes provisional pole at the second split. We are on pace to be just about a tenth quicker than him at the second sector split, but third sector, with our downforce levels, we tend to be a tiny bit stronger than the AI. Pitching it into turn 9, throwing the car there. Finding another couple of hundredths of a second. Nearly going to find 4/10 on this lap. We're going to cross the line. Is it going to be P1? Waiting for it. It is indeed pole position. Our first pole position of our driver career here in the Haas around Austria. And we end up doing it by a tenth of a second. Very tight margins up front. Leclerc goes P3 on only 26 thousandths of a second slower than Lando, and Nico down in P15.
Welcome to the beautiful Styrian Mountains for another chapter in the story of this famous race. It's time for the Austrian Grand Prix. We have wet conditions today, 10 corners out there for the drivers, 7 to the right and 3 to the left, making up a total distance of 2.6 miles. It is very easy to run wide, especially in these wet conditions. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Old Timer lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Russell, Perez, Oscar Piastri, Ricciardo, Gasly, Albon, Hülkenberg, Sainz, Tsunoda, Joe, Sargent, Bottas, and Esteban Ocon lines up at the back of the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes, delighted to say that we're joined today by Anthony Davidson. Well, it's all about forgetting last time because that was a bit of a shocker. How do they change the story today?
You've got to put it behind you. Whatever happened last time, I was always told as a driver, park it, forget about it. Obviously, feel the pain when it happens, but then you can't dwell on it and carry that through to the next race. So put it behind you and just crack on with this race coming your way now.
Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
So some dampness out there to start this race. We're going to be on the intermediate tires, of course. No real help of any kind of DRS to assist. We are starting on pole position, so it's going to be all about defending our position. 5 red lights up, lights out. Always tricky to get on the power in the wet here. We get a decent getaway. Norris to the inside. We're going to be fully clear of him by the time we turn into turn 1. Leave no spot for him as he and Leclerc are going to go side by side. Close the door down. We are going to be able to underfuel by quite a margin at the start of this race. So you can see my fuel mix down in the bottom right. Negative 1.05 laps. I'm looking to lift and coast, save some fuel, control the pack, as there's really not going to be too many overtaking opportunities. Of course, that lift and coast is also going to allow us to use the overtake in the strategic ways down these straight lines. Bit deep on the brakes into turn 4. That's going to allow Leclerc to stick a nose up the inside. Little tiny bit of contact as he starts to drift out wide there. And we somehow managed to stay ahead. But fighting these slippery conditions at the start of this race is getting very interesting. Now, the goal here in this 36 lap race is we're only expecting the rain to be around for probably 10, 12 laps, I'm thinking at most. I'm guessing at this point. So it's just about trying to manage the gap. If we can create a little breakaway pack, that would be great. But I don't expect to be that much quicker than the AI in the wet. F124's AI seems to be quite strong in the traction zones, which is very tough with no traction control in the wet, and it's definitely going to be the weaker point. So definitely just trying to maintain position, drive in my mirrors a lot, honestly, and make sure I'm not leaving the door open when I don't need to. But you can see already through those first couple of corners of the second lap just how close Lando Norris is to our gearbox. Of course, we have Charles right on the back of him as well. We are starting to form a little bit of a 3-man breakaway. Verstappen in 4th is about a second, I would say, back of the little pack here, but it's nothing that a mistake from us that closes this pack up would allow him to get involved once again. But it's all about, I have good confidence in the dry weather running. The tricky part is going to be managing the DRS once the track dries up, because I know the straight line speed of the AI. If they're behind me and I'm in front, they're going to use that DRS to breeze right on past me. So it's going to be all about maintaining. I think pace-wise, I was confident to be nothing worse than second if things did not go disastrously in the wet weather running. And so far, so good. You can see Leclerc actually dropping off of the back as now Norris and I are making a little 2-man breakaway, as Verstappen has caught up to Leclerc. Up the inside, Norris trying to get a bit of a run on us, but we actually get the traction on him out of turn 3. He's going to use the slipstream, close up on the way to turn 4, but by the time we hit the brakes ahead of the 100-meter board, he has no opportunity to try and pull alongside and get his nose up the inside of us. So once again, we kind of survive the first couple of corners. It's a lot harder in the wet here to overtake through turns 5, 6, 7, 8. That combination of corners is not going to be conducive to too much overtaking. They can get a good run out of turn 8 up to turn 9, as you can see actually Norris making some serious headway, but down into turn 9, it's not a whole lot of braking to be done there, so it's tough to get alongside. They can occasionally get a rocket run out of turn 8 and catch up down that little back straight, but as you can see, fastest lap of the race, although set by Perez and then Perez and then Russell shortly after that. Track starting to dry up maybe a little bit and getting a little quicker. And once again, Norris having a look down the inside turn 3. We're going to leave him the space just in case he sends the nose in. Apologies once again. Still not sure what's causing the occasional breakup in the audio during a recording, but it just happens. So jumping ahead now, lap 8 now of 36. You see the rain has stopped actively falling. We've set a purple final sector, so the track is speeding up, but most importantly, Verstappen has made his way up into P2. Norris into P3. Leclerc has fallen back and gotten caught behind Lance Stroll, so all the way back in P5, and we have about a 6-second gap between this lead pack of the podium positions and the rest of the field. So starting to make that little breakaway group. Verstappen, as the track has dried up, has gotten quicker and quicker. You can see we didn't quite save as much fuel as I was hoping during this, but safety car deployed. There's a big old pile up in turn 3, and the safety car is out. So now the tough choices here. Do we look to go to the end of the race on either the medium or the hard tire? The medium, it's going to be grippy and more grippy in this kind of intermediate phase. I'm also kind of hedging the bets. Maybe the AI is going to two-stop as well, and I can react. So I'm committing to the medium tire on the way in, not taking the hard tire in this case. Have to be careful about the delta, get slowed back down, and now we can hustle our way into the pit lane. I would expect pretty much everybody should be coming in on this lap, as wouldn't expect anybody else to be really running those intermediate tires too much longer. As we were driving by, we can see hard tires in the McLaren and Red Bull pit boxes. Already starting to second guess my choice, but the medium tires are what we are taking and going on to. We are going to come out in the lead of this race, so we will be able to control the pack for a little bit, and hopefully the track can dry up a little bit more before we get back to green flag racing. Looks like Bottas has chosen to stay out on those inters, but did pit later on. So here we are back at the restart of the race, lap 10 of 36, a pretty short safety car period. Tires are a bit cold, those rear tires especially. It's going to be tricky. But we get a decent jump on the cars behind, make about a 0.7 of a second gap to those two Verstappen behind. Now, that 6-second margin that we had built up amongst the podium pack and the rest is gone completely. And it looks like Lando Norris has had a bit of a nightmare over the safety car period, as Leclerc back in P3, and I think Norris is probably down in about P6, P7. But Verstappen getting a very good run, headed down to turn 4. He's going to get up the inside. We're going to try and hang it out around the outside. And we do manage to just about hold off the charging Red Bull in this one. Now that we're back to green flag racing, the track is drying up. We'll see if the DRS will become available. If so, we're probably going to be in a similar situation to what we were in the sprint race, which is tucked up behind Verstappen and hoping for the best as we head the rest of the way around the final 2/3 of this race. And also, seeing everybody going on to hard tires has basically meant I need to try and manage my tires, get these medium tires to the end, because I don't expect the AI to be making another pit stop in this race. And yes, DRS is enabled. You can see rear wing flipping open on the Red Bull of Verstappen. He's closing up to the back of us, moving to the racing line into turn 3. We are holding the inside. We're going to slot in behind Verstappen, although Leclerc getting a very good run. Big wheel spin as we come out of turn 3. That's going to cost us a position to Leclerc. And now taking the pressure from Stroll behind. So we've dropped 2 positions now that the DRS has been enabled. Went from leading this race, pole position, leading the whole way, to now down into P3. And we're going to have to try and make our way back up past Leclerc. A little wide through sector 2 there, but we are able to just about hang on to the car and keep on track. The track's still quite cold, as you can see, very gloomy, still overcast, so it's not drying rapidly yet, and just trying to manage the tires. We can push on just about as hard as the dry tires would take it, but the coldness is keeping the lap times from being super quick. Down to the 108.5s on this lap here, so not a terrible lap, but we do have some DRS help, and you can see, thanks to that safety car period, our fuel mix now just minus a half a lap, with about 23 laps left in order to get it. And now ahead of us, Leclerc and Verstappen fighting, but no real way through, so it's only just going to slow us up a bit, trying to break the toe from Stroll behind and also get out, cool our engine temperature, trying to achieve this objective. But when it comes down to it, if it's choosing between the singular objective or the actual race position, I think we know what I'm going to pick. I'm going to go for the race position. You see, failed too much in the dirty air of the cars behind. I would have had to have dropped basically completely out of DRS range in order to maintain the engine temperature down low enough. So I just didn't do it. 131C is pretty low as far as engine temperatures go overall. But alas, here we go. Carlos Sainz setting the new fastest lap of the race, a 107.3. We got down to the 107.6s, so pace is decent for us as well. You can see just kind of hanging with the lead pack. Leclerc once again trying to go for a move on Verstappen down into turn 3. Big lockup from Leclerc, though, as he goes wide and has to go straight on. That's going to cost him the position. We're back up into P2, so fortunately able to get ourselves back into that second chasing position without having to fight too long with the DRS train. And now we are essentially in the position like we saw in the sprint race, but just about twice as long to go. A little less than that, but still 22 laps, so nearly twice as long to go. Yellow flags back in sector 2 there at turn 4, but quickly cleared, and that is a McLaren that looks to be fallen to the back of the pack, and then also a Kick Sauber way at the back there. So they're having a fairly rough day of it. We actually set the fastest lap of the race, a 106.743 on this. We're going to jump ahead now, lap 24 of 36. And we've actually started to make a little bit of headway on Verstappen here. We, of course, have an objective to try and overtake Verstappen before lap 27. A little bit of wheel spin out of turn 1. Deciding to burn some battery. Probably won't maintain the position, but the goal is to get ahead of Verstappen. Rear locked a little bit on the way into turn 3. Had to kind of make some squiggling, and we do manage to get our nose ahead enough to achieve the goal. And now headed down into turn 4. Verstappen, though, holding the inside. You can see how close Leclerc is. I kind of had to go for a move on Verstappen, or else Leclerc was going to be right there to try and pick up the pieces on both of us. But once again, tucking right back into the slipstream of the Red Bull of Max Verstappen and hanging out in a nice, comfortable P2 position, maintaining currently the fastest lap of the race. So we'll see if we can get that as we'll come to the end of lap 24. So another 12 laps left to go in this one. Just, I've said so many times, sprint race distance. You can see tires getting kind of worn. That front right, 42%. However, we have done about 15 laps on these, so it's going to be close-ish. I'm going to definitely have to worry about managing tires. So lap 31, we take another jump ahead. Big wheel spin moment as the car really getting unwieldy as these tires wear out. You can see tire wear indicator is on, and the rear tire is starting to get very unhappy with me as I've pushed these medium tires quite a long way in this race, and at this point it's just all about trying to hold on. We're about a second off of our best laps of the race, and now it's really the rear tires are struggling quite a bit at this phase. You can see they're pretty worn. The front tires are worn a little bit more, but the rear tires are worn enough that it's a real struggle for the back of the car to get going as you get on the power. But we have managed to stay, even with that mistake in the final sector last lap, we have managed to stay with the DRS of Verstappen. If we had lost Verstappen, it would have almost certainly been an opportunity to fall completely off the podium. We still have a very good chance here of maintaining a P2 finish. Leclerc has taken the fastest lap point off of us at this stage of the race. But we have managed to, through lift and coast, get our fuel mix to where we want it to be. Plus too much now, actually. We were able to kind of underfuel the car based on test running. And it was, of course, underfueled a bit more because of the rain, and very wide there through turn 10. Somehow didn't get a track limits penalty or warning there. Maybe because it was so slow going off track that wide. But Still ticking down the laps as these tires feel worse and worse every time we pass the start-finish line. And again, driving in our mirrors. Charles Leclerc, big issue. We have yellow flags up ahead. Once again, a slow-moving Sauber looking to get going out of turn 4. He's on the move once again, so green flags before we get there. We're also still holding out hope at this stage that maybe there's an opportunity for us to save some battery, go on the attack on the final lap, perhaps go for the race win over Verstappen, but considering how the sprint race win went, and very wide moment here through turn 6, Leclerc going to come, try and get up the inside, a little side-by-side contact. He forces us to the right as we wheel bang. Now we've lost touch with Verstappen, headed up, so probably the worst thing that could have happened for us at this stage of the race is to lose touch with the race leader. So no DRS available to us unless we can somehow find a way to make 3/10 over this little short straight. We are going to be very much under pressure from both Leclerc and Stroll. And big wheel spin out of turn 1 as the car tries to take a right-hand turn. Our battery just about depleted. Leclerc going to the outside. We're holding the inside, trying to keep our nose in on the way into turn 3. A little bit of contact side by side into turn 3. Yellow flags as another Sauber slowing down. We're still there. Leclerc had his nose ahead at the DRS detection point. We are going to try and hold him to the outside line. He's got some grip on us, but we have the inside line. Valtteri Bottas out of the session. We pull ahead of Charles Leclerc, so fight off our demise at least one time. We're about to head through the yellow flag zone. Verstappen now starting to dash off into the distance. Of course, so late in the race, no safety car is going to be called for that. He's also pulled well off the racing line. But another run. Here comes Leclerc trying to get to the inside in turn 9. We are going to close the door directly on him. He's not there in order for him to be warranted any kind of space. So we're going to make him back out, rob him of some momentum. He is going to try and get past us down into turn 1. We are going to hope, and he did, in fact, get his nose ahead just at the detection point. So we get some DRS out of turn 1. He is going to be under pressure now from Lance Stroll, who has some speed, although the slipstream is going to help Leclerc out. And once again, turn 3, side by side, him and Lando Norris has gotten through Lance Stroll. Stroll dropping back a little bit further. The side-by-side fighting from them has earned me a tiny bit of breathing space down into turn 4, but it's very quickly eaten up by the DRS usage of the cars behind once again. On the penultimate lap of this race, just about a lap and a half left to go, and we are fighting for our life and to try and stay on the podium, because it's almost certain that at this stage, if we can't make any kind of little gap and hold off in turn 1 and turn 2 and turn 3, we will be under heavy pressure. Once again, Leclerc looking to the inside, again chopping the nose. No door open for him there. He's going to be in a similar spot, thinking about maybe trying the same strategy to lift off, let him get just ahead at the detection point. This time, I don't think we've done it. Indeed, we haven't. He's got the inside, although he's got to take a real sharp corner on the inside. This allows us to carry some momentum around the outside, even without the DRS. Battery is burning. We're saving just a little bit of battery. As we can see, we've got a good run down into turn 3. Just need the battery in order to get down into turn 4. I think if we can get out of turn 4, you can see 69% wear on that front right tire. It's getting very close to puncture tire. We're going to go defensive to the inside into turn 4. Leclerc around the outside. We are going to just give him about a car's width of space using the curb, so he's barely going to be able to hold on. That's given us a tiny breath of fresh air there. And we should have just about enough battery. He's been very quick the last couple of laps out of turn 7 and 8. So again, coming out turn 8, we are going to dump everything that is left in our battery and should be able to hold off turn 9, turn 10, and you can see what kind of ailment our tires are in, because Verstappen crosses the line nearly 6 seconds ahead of us, but we are going to hold on for a podium finish here in Austria at the Red Bull Ring. A P2 finish that was very hard fought there at the end.
Really strong drive and a great finish. Well done.
Well, they are celebrating in Spielberg, a deserving winner of the Austrian Grand Prix.
with 5 race victories now, is for the others now really to try and stop that momentum that they've got on their side, because before too long they're going to be looking at the championship. It's theirs, it's within grasp right now, of course.
Red Bull are our winners today after showcasing some incredible driving. There's been a huge push from them lately to stay competitive with the other teams, and they're certainly proving themselves.
So far, a fantastic weekend on the second step of the podium, sharing it with Verstappen and Leclerc, 2 bright stars of F1, and grabbing our, I believe, if I remember correctly, I think that's our first career podium, and of course, our first pole position, naturally.
Event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time? Be sure to join us again as we continue to bring you the latest excitement in Formula One.
And of course, with it being a sprint race weekend, 2 P2 finishes brings us essentially a race wins haul of points, 25 points on the weekend. And honestly, not far off from the fastest lap of the race. Leclerc only a couple hundredths of a second faster. That gives us a good 10 points clear of Lance Stroll now in the championship. We're up to 46 points as a team. So here we are headed back into our home base. British Grand Prix coming up next. 4th of July for the British Grand Prix. Very patriotic day for myself. And we're racing in England. That's interesting. Fun to say. But let's take a look at our setups for the next week before we move on. Get a couple of our specialist goals. Average corner speed should be pretty easy around such a high-speed circuit. 115 miles an hour is not too much. Do I do the penalties? Yeah, I think 3 penalties in a weekend. I should be good. Perfect the race strategy practice program. Always do. Try and get that details and 4 laps using 2 setups. Or 2 engine components. Which we tend to do around the weekend. Of course, we use practice set of components now that are a little more worn. And then the race set of components. Now let's head over into R&D. See if we can't get ourselves up a little bit ahead of the Cash App RB team. So let's see what's available. We have 489 points. Can't afford that front wing flap. Nothing we can really do there. We can afford a fuel efficiency upgrade, which our power unit is in a very good way at the moment. So we're going to go with standard development there. See if there's anything else interesting in the durability. But we do have quite a few upgrades in the pipeline on the way. So we will see what we can do with that there. But that P2 improves upon our best result of P4 in Canada, or makes for our first podium of the season and of our career. So thank you all for joining me once again in another one of the slightly longer ones, as they are with the sprint race weekends. So they're usually a few. I'll try and keep them around 45-ish, 30 for regular weekends, 45-ish for sprint weekends. But thank you all for joining me once again. I appreciate everybody who is watching, anybody who's commented with suggestions. Appreciate y'all, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.